from... Great. May I now call Marc Strauss, voilà, bonjour, to the rostrum to put us into the picture of what's happening in the Union for the Mediterranean, what are the major goals. I suppose to many of you this will be common knowledge. For the not so much Mediterranean-based people like myself, it will be very interesting to hear more about this union for the Mediterranean. So, Mr. Strauss, please. Yes, because the idea, well, it depends a little bit. The idea was actually to give the possibility for the remarks in the panel discussion, where we have the speakers here. So if it's okay. Yeah. Can we do it the following way? That for the Gemlich keynote and the next Hellal keynote, we have reserved a time slot for questions. So maybe you can bring that in. This was to set the background, basically, for the working program, and therefore we have not really made the provision for questions. Okay? Thank you. So, voilà, Mr. Strauss.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, yes. Thank you for your invitation and for this opportunity to present the Union for the Mediterranean, which is based in Barcelona, as Vice Rector Carreras mentioned it in his introductory speech. So, and to explain a little bit who we are, I will start with a brief presentation about our history, priority, and main areas and mission, and develop a little bit further with our concrete activities and added value. A few words about our history. As you know, the Union for the Mediterranean, the UFM, is a multilateral partnership bringing together 43 countries, the 27 European Union member states, and 16 member states from the Middle East, North Africa, and the Balkans. So all in all, 43 member states. It was launched on the 13th of July 2008 at the Paris Summit as a continuation of the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership, the Euromed, also known as the Barcelona process, established at the Barcelona Conference in 1995. The UFM constitutes a framework for political, economic, and social relations between the European Union and the southern and eastern Mediterranean countries, and is inspired by the goals set out in the Barcelona Declaration. 6 priority areas have been defined in the Paris Declaration, and they constitute the bulk, the core of the Union for the Mediterranean Secretariat. These 6 areas are the following. First, depollution of the Mediterranean, and more generally, water and environment issues. Second, transport, in particular, maritime and land highways. Third, alternative energies, renewable energies and energy efficiency. This is the Mediterranean Solar Plan, which is a flagship UFM project. Fourth, civil protections and social affairs. 5, development on small and business enterprises around the Mediterranean Business Development Initiative. And last but not least, since we are in this distinguished assembly, higher education and research in the Euro-Mediterranean space. So this is our 6 main priorities. What is our structure? The idea is to have a co-ownership, an equal footing between North and South countries. And So the Union for the Mediterranean has been built as a real partnership between the European Union and southern and eastern Mediterranean countries, and its governance reflects these goals. So we have three main institutions: a co-presidency because there are two co-presidents, one from the north and one from the south, and the co-president chairs all ministerial meetings, senior officials meetings, and some other ad hoc meetings. We have a permanent executive organ, which is the senior official meetings. It's a gathering, I would say, of 43 Euromed ambassadors from the different member states. And we have the Secretariat, which is a permanent institution, which is based in Barcelona, and which is led by the Secretary General, assisted by 6 Deputy Secretary Generals, related for each of the 6 priority areas I mentioned before. This is basically our structure. Our mission is to enhance cooperation and understanding between the two shores of the Mediterranean Sea through the implementations of concrete projects. The Secretariat is a project coordination platform for all UFM partners. It proactively gathers and promotes regional, sub-regional, transnational projects or national projects in the framework of regional strategies or initiatives. The idea is to improve the socio-economic development, the regional integration, and the exchange of knowledge among and within the countries of the UFM. And of course, we are working in synergy with all the other key stakeholders involved in the Euro-Mediterranean framework. For my part, I'm much more dealing with renewable energy and the Mediterranean Solar Plan, which is aiming at developing renewable energy and energy efficiency in the Mediterranean region. And I think it's important to note that in this large infrastructure project, it's also the same thing with transport, environment, and of course renewable energy. Higher education, research are key elements because the idea is to develop this project in order to bring socio-economic development in the Mediterranean region. And you cannot build this large infrastructure and initiative if you don't have a higher education and research element to provide this socio-economic development. So to train the engineers, the academic people, which will operate within these large initiatives. What is the added value of the Secretariat? It's certainly to raise awareness and visibility. The UFM will identify and select some projects and brand this project. And even if the Secretariat and the UFM as such have no substantial financial means, this is a political support for UFM branded project, and we hope that this will help the promoter of projects to further raise support and mobilize partners. The UFM Secretariat is also there to support the project with its expertise and to facilitate access to finance. Perhaps Professor Mifsud from Emoni will develop that a little bit further, but some first projects have already been branded in the UFM related to the cooperation with Emoni. Three master programs have in particular been branded by the UFM member states a few weeks ago. And there are masters related to some of our priority: environment, transport, and so on. So, in a nutshell, the UFM carries a strong political commitments and collective solidarity between the 43 countries. It's more co-ownership through the Secretariat and the UFM institution based in Barcelona. It's also stronger regional and sub-regional integrations through large projects to develop transport, energy, and water infrastructures. It's also more projects concrete to meet the needs of the Mediterranean citizens, to support local development, improve women entrepreneurships, and enhance higher education systems and research programs. And it's also a better adaptation to the current regional context with a focus on the development of small business. So to conclude, we think that in this particular context, taking into account the Arab Spring and the developments which are taking place, the UFM is even much more necessary now than 3 years ago when it has been launched, because we need even more to develop our concrete projects, partnership, co-ownership in the aftermath of this Arab Spring. And so, of course, the UFM Secretariat is ready to support your projects and your initiatives. Thank you for your attention.
Overview. May I ask two questions because I was not, maybe I didn't listen properly, but you said that there were a number of member states.
Yes.
And you talked about the co-presidency. Who represents the member states? Like, are they represented by their heads of state or by the ambassador or who?
You have different levels of
It's okay. Yeah, you should be on.
Yes, you have different levels of meetings. Well, of course, there was only one summit which launched the Union for the Mediterranean, and so at the summit, the member states were represented by head of states of governments. You have ministerial meetings, which are sectoral or at the level of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So you had, for example, a ministerial meeting last week for sustainable urban development, and their member states were represented either by ministers for housing or environment or by high civil servants. So you have these ministerial meetings. You have much more technical expert level meetings, so it's at the level of high civil servant. And you have also, I would say, each 6 weeks, a gathering of the ambassadors, senior official meetings. So this is more or less the ambassadors representing each member state for the 43 member states. So the level of the participation depends.
So it's a very, it goes very deep into the various.
The idea is to have really at each meeting key representative for the 43 member states.
And another question, if I'm permitted to ask it, you talked about the co-presidency.
Yes.
And what kind of person is president or co-president? Again, at which I'm just asking at which level of.
It is the same. It is in fact exactly the same thing. At the level of the head of state of the government, it was in 2008 Sarkozy and Mubarak. Now, when you have the ministers meeting, you have also ministers.
So you have a co-presidency exactly. at each of the levels.
That's it. And for the time being, the co-presidency is still exercised by France and by Egypt. But it should change, because initially the co-presidency was designed only for 2 years, but there is some delay and it should change. I think that in the north, it's not completely decided, but I think that in the north, the northern co-presidency will be exercised by the External Service of Action, Mrs. Ashton and her people. And in the south, another Arab country must take the lead after Egypt. That's,
okay.
That's the situation.
Well, this have been my question. There is another question. Yes, please. Just wait a sec. Would you also tell us who you are, please?
Thank you very much. I am the national coordinator, campus coordinator of Lebanon. And in fact, might look a little bit rude, but it's been raised by many colleagues from my country. Why inventing this cooperation scheme, which is the Union for the Mediterranean, while the EMPI is working very well? I mean, you're complicating all the issue of the cooperation between Europe and the Mediterranean region. The EMPI is working very well, while the UFM, there are some difficulties in projects.
I think that if the UFM was established 3 years ago, it was because the 43 member states considered that there was a real room for improvement in the UNPI. It was what considered the 43 member states who decided to fund the UFM, as well as the European Union. And 2 or 3 areas of improvement were considered as really worthwhile by the member states and by the European Union. The first one was to have a real co-ownership and equality between southern and eastern member states on one side and the European Union on the other side. It was felt that it was not completely the case before. The second area of improvements was to establish some permanent institutions representing all the countries, member states and stakeholders, which was not the case before. It was felt that it was a necessity. And the third idea was to develop much more initiatives and concrete projects supported by all these permanent structures. So that was the ideas which were developed 3 years ago by all the member states and by the European Union, because precisely they considered that the Barcelona process was very valuable and attractive, but needed to be further developed and improved. That's basically the idea which were at the real basis of the UFM.
Okay. One more question. Yes, please.
Mohammed Salhin from Ain Shams University, Cairo. I'm currently directing a joint degree with Germany. And I would like to ask, if you're already in action 3 years ago, what would be the best success story that you would tell us about the thing that you've developed, or the things that would help really actions on ground, North-South cooperation?
Okay. I would first perhaps like to explain just in a nutshell. In fact, the Paris Declaration was adopted 3 years ago, but it took time for the member states to develop and establish the Secretariat. And our Secretariat is Barcelona, is only working since the end of last year, in fact. So as the Secretariat, we have a little more than a year of experience. In the first 2 years, the member states and the co-presidency were active and the Secretariat was not there. So I can perhaps just mention what we have done in the Secretariat during the last year. And I would provide you a few examples. First, we have approved a set of, the Secretariat has proposed and the member states have approved a set of individual projects. Among these projects, I will mention, I have mentioned the 3 master's programs which will be developed with Emoni. And students are already coming, and it's an initiative which is developing. A very important and meaningful project has been launched and approved. This is a water desalination facility for Gaza Strip. This is the Water for Gaza project. And we hope the Secretariat will be able to gather the donors and to implement this project in the coming years. And if it is a success, it will be a project which will be coordinated and worked by the Secretariat, which will be able to bring together the various participants, Palestinian Authority, Egypt, Israel, and to build a particular momentum on this project to bring much more water, which is really really needed in the Gaza Strip population. Okay. And I'm working on the Mediterranean Solar Plan, which is a very large initiative. The idea is to develop renewable energy and energy efficiency in the Mediterranean region. This is quite complex. You need to build a common vision. What should we do with funding, regulatory and political framework? How design the interconnections between the north and the south? How export green electricity in this space? How build socio-economic development with that? How build technical facility and so on? The second point would be also to brand and to support individual concrete projects. And finally, to design innovative financial tools. So we have really a lot to do in this context with these tools. That's basically some very short insight reference idea. But of course, it would take much more time to explain in detail.
Okay, I will take one last short, if I may, just one last short question, because we are a little behind time already, and then we'll go into the coffee break.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Vice Dean of the Faculty of Architecture at Damascus University. Just I need to put some remarks about the really the connection between the politics and the culture. I think, and the higher education, I'm désolé pour notre ami qui n'a pas à prendre le visa. One of our colleagues not take the visa and he is not here. I think we must keep the door open for the culture and higher education, especially for the Union of Mediterranean. So we don't want to waste our time. We are working since, I think, 2000, and a lot of experts of Bologna process coming to our countries and make a lot of things and a lot of works. We don't waste this, really, this effort. So we need that the politics still away for the culture and for the higher education. And we need your support to keep the door open for this culture, even there the spring or the winter. And really, this remark, we want to keep it in the mind of the Union of Mediterranean, and still easy clear, because even that we are spend a lot of time to take our visas, and this is we find that this is for some professors or some of our colleagues. It's not a very important thing. We are just want to cooperate to build our countries and our Mediterranean unification. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you very much. You're quite right. That's the reason why higher education and research is one of the six UFM priorities, because as you said, this is really a key area for cooperation, and I would say it's really a cross-cutting subject, because you have a higher education and research component in all the other areas. You cannot develop other areas, infrastructure, economic development, and so on, without this particular dimension. So I think you're
okay.
completely right.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, so it's coffee break now, and be back at 15 past the hour, please.